Hi-ho, everyone, and welcome back to the adventures of Turwinkle, the Gnome Mage. Well, hi, Turwinkle.
Greetings.
Are you all set for tonight?
Affirmative.
Well, great, because tonight we're going to be meeting Galen Lattimore of House Heathon, and we're going to learn all about not only his tune, but a little bit about him as well. So without further ado, let's get right to it, shall we?
Sure.
All right, well, let's hop to it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we have Lord Galen Lattimore here with us, the Shadow Pan Asset, Grey Mane Captain Honor Guard, nicknamed Dire Sword or Dire Wolf of the Lord of House. Is it Dallenroy? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, it is Dallenroy.
Okay, Noble of the House Heathon, and he is Galen the Relic Hunter, level 90 Cursed Gilnan, Dire Worgen Warrior. Currently seems lonely and quiet. Is a vet, mature paraposter. So we'll cover every one of those things here in just a moment. So folks, let's first of all take a look at this wonderful wonderful gear that Galen has here. That is just absolutely fantastic, sir.
Thank you very much. It was a fun set to build for myself.
How long did it take?
Oh well, the interesting part is this armor is all from Pandaria, as you can see, except for one piece, and that is the cloak on my back. So all of these pieces I either gathered through the low-level raid finders, like the Magushan Vaults and the Vaults of Mysteries, or from the Valor vendors. So, seeing as though they were all Valor pieces in Mists of Pandaria, you had to buy each one separately a week after grinding your 1,000 caps. So it took me a long while to get this set.
And you just finished that set today, didn't you?
I did. Thankfully, this interview was on a Tuesday, so the last piece I had to get was this belt, which actually, the belt I had originally, this belt changed it drastically, so it looks tons better. So I'm really excited that I managed to finish the set on my interview day.
Now you can not only use this set for RP, but use it as battle gear too, correct?
Yes, indeed. This is my transmog armor, and my pretty much permanent transmog armor.
Oh, okay, so you will definitely be using it for both RP and for your battle gear then.
Yes, I will, without a doubt.
Well, wonderful. And again, it looks fantastic, sir. So folks, what we're going to do is we're going to come back and start asking some questions about Lord Galen Lattimore. So we'll be right back with those. All right, well, I guess the first question that we always come to is, how did you come up with the name Lord Galen Lattimore?
Well, to start myself, I guess, Galen has always been a favorite name of mine. I had a really good friend for a while, who's still my friend today. I just haven't, had a chance to hang around with him for a while. And his name was Galen, and he was the first person I ever met in real life whose name was Galen. And I always just thought it was a very cool name, being kind of based out of Celtic origins.
Oh, sure.
But with the last name, Lattimore, that's also a good story. I was mostly Horde side for my entire WoW life. I've been playing since vanilla. But when I first went Alliance, the one quest that stuck with me that I did was this quest line in Duskwood.
Oh, that's right.
And back in the day, before they revamped all the quests and everything else, like all the quests, like Cataclysm came out, that quest chain was the last quest chain you did in Duskwood. And because you didn't have a mount at level 20 back then, or even, it was an extremely hard quest because you would have to run on foot through Duskwood back and forth from side to side. So it was a very time-consuming quest, and it really made you focus more on the quest and the lore that Blizzard put into it. And the last name Lattimore, just that whole storyline of, putting the lost hero of the Alliance to rest. A man who, even in death, the light touched somehow, and still held in its grasp. Bringing that fallen hero to a final rest after he had gone through so much grief in his life really hit hard on me. So the name always stuck with me because it was just a special name.
Yeah, that really is And in fact, it's still a fun quest to go through. You bring his daughter up, and uh, for him to get a chance to say goodbye. And like you said, it is kind of touching, and it's a neat. It's a neat quest. So that's great. So you've taken not only a real life uh, person, and you've combined it with something in game. So it's great. Now he is a lord, and he's a lord of the House of Dallenroy. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yes, it is.
So what is the House Dallenroy? What is that?
Well, that's a very interesting story as well to talk about. This character, as soon as I saw the announcement trailer for Cataclysm all those years ago, when you hear Chris Metzen's voice in that epic announcer tone say, and bring the savage Worgen into the Alliance, something clicked in my mind, and forth came this character concept for the chivalrous knight of Galen, and starting from that, I had many years of roleplay with that character, and eventually I met someone in game who doesn't play anymore, sadly, because once Guild Wars 2 came out, he made that move over there and has
Sure.
not been on in 5 months. And his character was actually the lord of House Dallenroy, and that was his original idea. House Dallenroy was a house within another guild, and that guild on this server still today is called Lordaeron Temple Knights.
Oh, okay.
Within that guild, I was in that guild for a couple of months, and within that guild there was different houses because the different officers or captains in charge of the guild were all of different lore-wise nationality. You had Alterac, you had Gilneas, you had Lotharinian, and because there was so few Gilneans in Lordaeron Temple Knights, my character Galen and the mage captain or archmage Levictus Dallenroy, they became close friends. Levictus was the lord of House Dallenroy, of course, because it's his family name. They were an extremely wealthy family because of the many trips he would make to archaeological digs.
Oh,
They
uh-huh.
would find ancient relics and sell them, and so they became very wealthy explorers and researchers. And so all those months ago, my friend Levictus never really made an in-character reason as to why he stopped playing, and so I'm left with that question as to what happened to him in characterly. So Galen was inducted into the house, and he and I were the only two in character of that house. Anyone else who belongs to that house is an NPC that we make up in our minds. So my character, seeing all of this, all of this property, all of this reputation, and all of this wealth just sitting there collecting dust, pardon me, a manor slowly rotting away to the elements and to time. And so he said to himself, why not make a difference in this world with the opportunity that I'm given?
Oh, sure.
And so he took over the name Dallenroy. He is not its actual inheritor in any means. He is kind of the steward of the house until anyone of the house comes to reclaim it. Very much like Denethor from Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
But at
okay.
the same time, there's a great possibility that no one else will ever come back to this house to reclaim it as its actual bloodline. So this might be what my character's fate is, to wash over the house, the reputation, and the wealth of the name of Dallenroy.
So you're much like Alfred to Bruce Wayne. Excellent. Well,
I guess you could say that.
sure. How did you find your way to House Heathon then?
Well, that's actually that's a good question. This character, for the longest time, ever since I left Lordaeron Temple Knights, I simply could not find a match guild-wise for this character. Um, for a lot of people, they aren't picky, but I guess my reason for being picky is because I don't want to join a guild and then, a week later or maybe even a couple of days later decide it's not for me. If I'm going to join a guild, it has to be a guild that out of characterly I'm comfortable with, and in character, my character would actually have a reason to join. I first in characterly heard about House Heathon when my character was actually in the cathedral here in Stormwind. It was just a random night about maybe 2 months ago now. and I just walked up to the altar and kneeled, just in character. There was no one
Sure.
around me. And then Mirianda, the current guild leader, randomly came up from behind me and knelt beside me. And we started role playing, just random role play. Wasn't even initiated through out of character whispers. And here I am. I was offered a position because my character has extensive history as being a personal bodyguard, and the Lady Heathon, being of noble and rather important, she hired him because he is a very formidable bodyguard.
Oh, well, excellent. So, something as simple as a walk up RP has taken your character in a whole different direction then.
A whole different direction and a very good direction for him.
Well, excellent. Well, all that sounds wonderful, and we'll come back with some more questions. All right, and we're back. So, you have the nickname Dire Sword or Dire Wolf. So, what do those nicknames mean?
Well, that all starts from for the past couple months. He's actually been receiving very, I guess I would say, hardcore training with the Pandaren at the
Okay.
Temple of the Jade Serpent in the Jade Forest. Dire Sword comes from the Pandaren because all initiates are given a nickname to be referred by instead of their actual name. And that nickname could come from either their personality or it might actually be their name because the Pandaren do have very, very lovely names. Dire Sword comes from the whole. He originally went to the Shadowpan specifically because he wanted to receive extenuous training in the ways of their sword and combat skill. Dire Sword because his main weapon, of course, being the sword, and the word dire comes from what he actually is. He is a human, yes, but he is also a cursed human. He's a Worgen, but he's not just the average-sized Worgen. He is what would be referred to as an alpha Worgen, or in his case, a dire Worgen. Dire Worgen, much like the dire wolves of the modern world, are far bigger than the modern-day wolf.
Oh, well, wonderful. That's a great RP aspect to even just add on to already what a great story you have thus far. How long have you been training with the Pandaren?
Realistically, he's been training with the Pandaren for 4 months. And the way I look at that is because the training realistically takes place early in the morning till mid-afternoon, I use that as the reason as to why I'm gone at work, which is, easily from 7 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon or 8 to 5. So that is when he is in Pandaria training. And then when I get online and bring him into the game and roleplay with all his friends in Stormwind or Netherguard Keep or the guild's base, that's him arriving back from Pandaria from his training. So it fits perfectly.
Oh, great. So again, using real life situations to further your story RP wise. So that's great. That's an excellent use of RP there, sir.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Now it says here you seem lonely and quiet. Why that?
Well, in all honesty, Galen as a character, it's a very sad story to go into. He lost his wife when the cataclysm actually happened in Gilneas when it shattered the wall. And for those who have done the Gilneas starting zone, you know that the ocean rose drastically and completely obliterated a coastal town. That is where Galen's wife was, his wife's name being Eulenia.
Oh no.
She was on the shore when that happened, and she was not able to escape in time. So, for the last years, since the Gilneans have rejoined civilization, he has been a very sad man, basically living with that image of the town being swallowed by the wave and not really being able to move on,
Oh
regardless
gosh.
as to how hard he tried.
Man. So do you think maybe in the future there might be a chance for someone else or no?
That's what he honestly hopes, and honestly, that's what I hope because for those who cherish their favorite or maybe even only character they roleplay as their children, you always want to see them happy. You
Sure.
don't want to sulk around. You don't want to sulk around Stormwind in a bad mood all the time. You want to have fun, but sometimes you actually have to have your character as to what they'd actually be like in the current time.
Well, yeah, and it depends on how much I guess you are into your RP then as well. If you're a light RPer, it's not as big a deal, but if you're a heavy RPer, certainly you're going to have those emotional ranges from being sad, angry, upset, and you would play them as you would a real person in real life. So yeah, especially like you said, if your tune, your main, as people call their character they play the most, uh, is someone that's going through a hard time, you've got to go through that hard time with them, and you definitely want to see them find uh, happiness in the game. So excellent, sir. So we'll come back and we're going to talk a little bit about one of the things down here that I'm interested in, and that is the para poster part of your MRP, and we'll talk about that when we come back. All right, we're back. So let's talk a little bit about paraposting. And for those of you folks that do not know, paraposting is when you are RPing, you're not just RPing a single sentence, but you are doing a whole range of different emotions, expressions, what you're saying, what you're doing, and you're putting them up in paragraphs at a time. And so how long have you been RPing actually?
I've been role playing since about a week after the original vanilla WoW was launched.
In World of Warcraft you have?
In World of Warcraft, yes.
Holy smokes. Do
That
you...
was when I
Oh, go
that
ahead.
was when I originally first started role playing.
Oh, okay. So have you role played outside of World of Warcraft?
Well, I guess you could say I have, because acting on stage does technically count as role playing because you're pretending to be someone else completely.
Well, sure. Yeah, that's a lot of people would consider acting, and actors, actresses are actually role playing because they are taking a role and they are playing it for people. So you're exactly right there. Uh, and so you got started role playing in World of Warcraft in vanilla. How hard was it to learn how to do the emotes and things like that in the game?
Well, for me, it was hard to begin with because at that time I was not the best typer. Uh, my hands didn't have their knowledge of the keyboard yet. So for me, it was hard simply because it took me so long to post things, and as well back then, I wasn't as uh, knowledgeable and descriptive in terms of vocabulary as I am now. So for me back then, it was definitely a challenge because it was something that I saw as really cool. Wow, you're acting over a digital world, over over pixels, and you have this huge opportunity to just have this be your outlet of imagination. But at the same time, as I said, I had a hard time simply because my typing wasn't up to par with other people.
Sure, I think that was the same thing, the trouble that I had when I first started as well, because you'd be in a conversation, and by the time I would get my answer typed out, they were already down the line, three or four more questions down the line, and I was like, trying to keep up is hard, especially like you said, if you're not a fast typer, that can be a little frustrating at times.
Oh, absolutely. If you are a fresh role player and you come across someone that has experience in role play in other games, um, maybe just over chat box, not even having a real world, like an actual environment to act in, it can actually be really intimidating because they can be so much more, well, so much more than you. It disheartens a lot of people, and so a lot of people don't really grow into the role player because they feel like they're stunted because they're not as good as everybody else.
Well, now, even to this day, I feel a little intimidated when I'm RPing with paraposters. And the reason why is because there'll be this fantastic, eloquent RP written out, and I will be like, I laugh brightly and say yes. And then I feel guilty for not having something more descriptive and just as good as the person that I'm RPing with. And so I think it really, what it does for me is it really helps me to become a better RPer when I'm RPing with a paraposter, because it really, like I said, stretches that vocabulary quite a bit. What would you consider the difference between a paraposter and someone that says they do heavy RP but not quite up to that point?
Well, becoming a para poster in terms of roleplay, it really just comes with experience. For me, when I first started playing WoW, some people end up first joining guilds, roleplay guilds that maybe aren't the most stellar in terms of how enveloped they are into roleplay or how seriously they take the lore. For me, when I first started playing WoW, I was Horde side on the guild Moonguard, which is also a role-playing guild. Um, and I was an undead rogue at the time, and the very first guild I joined, I was level 25, and I happened to come across this in-character meeting of at least 50 undead avatars,
Oh,
Forsaken
man.
avatars,
Wow.
sitting around in what is the old Brill model town hall, because Brill got revamped to new buildings and such. But it was
Yes.
the old Brill town hall I came across, and that guild does not exist anymore. But it was a what I call powerhouse guild on Moonguard, and that guild was called the Shadarim, and they were all very eloquent typers. You know, all of them either had extensive knowledge in English, like an English major, or they were just very, very thoughtful with their posts. There was no generic posts. Every post they made is almost as if you were reading a passage from some long lost Tolkien book.
Oh, sure.
And so for me, I wasn't really thrown into an environment of where I was around people like me who were just starting out. I was immediately thrown into this environment of where everyone else obviously had so much more experience than I did. And so for me, that was the incentive to learn quickly, and that's exactly what happened.
Excellent, sir. Excellent. Well, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about RPing. All right, we're back. So we always ask, uh, what can you tell us about you, sir, the player behind the screen there? What can you tell us about you?
Well, to start, I guess, I've always been extremely into fantasy all my life. As I've mentioned before, I've been on stage since I was 5. My very first role in our community theater here where I live, I was very close to the lead role in the play The Music Man. And for those who know the play, I was the character, the little ginger boy by the name of Winthrop, who spoke with a lisp. So
Oh,
at a very young age,
nice.
at a very young age, at a very young age, I was already very integrated into becoming somebody else and really selling myself as that character. Um, I graduated in 2012 from high school, and throughout my entire high school life, I was in plays, I was in choir, I was in bands, playing multiple musicians, singing to a point of where I made music festivals with my voice as either a tenor or a bass one, with auditions. I had a lot of success without being trained professionally. And my most recent big in a trip and big musical experience I've had. For my senior year, I actually transferred fully to a completely different high school from the school I had been at. And the school I'd been at, really small school, not a lot of diversity. I was at that school for 12 out of 13 years of my entire life.
Wow.
So for me, transferring to a completely different high school was a big jump.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, for instance, the high school I was at originally had 43 kids, excuse me.
Oh, that is pretty small.
43 kids. And my class was 17, including myself, and a lot of us had been together in the same grade since kindergarten. So for me, going to a high school that had 800 was a big jump for me. But my reason for going there was out of a musical reason. I had taken a couple classes there the previous year, which was my junior year, And because of that, I was actually allowed to audition for an elite a cappella group that was at that
They can't
high
join
school.
our group.
And you were only allowed to audition if you had been in their chorus for a full year. And lo and behold, I auditioned and I made it into that group, which consisted of 16 people, all high schoolers. And we had a full year of fundraising, concerts, and April vacation of 2012. I got to go with this a cappella group of 16 people, and we actually performed at Disney World in Florida.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
Yeah,
great.
we were there for a full week, and we saw the parks, and then we performed in front of easily a couple thousand people. So that was a very good musical experience for me.
Wow. So, are you planning to do something with that in the future, sir?
Well, I was originally going to go to college for music, but I guess you could say I chickened out, regardless of me already having practiced audition pieces for classical voice. I very much had second thoughts about it because that would have been a really big commitment, and I wasn't too sure what I really wanted to do. So it's definitely a possibility. We'll see. I definitely have a bunch of things to consider when it comes to what I want to do.
Well, excellent, sir. And so, uh, you play, obviously, you play WoW. What other hobbies do you have?
Well, I'm a martial artist. I've been taking an Americanized version of a Chinese style called Kempo.
Oh,
But
okay.
this American style is called Goju, which means hard and soft in Japanese. And that has been one of the few things that I've been extremely committed to since a young age. I started when I was 7, and I had to stop taking that class when I was 17 because of the difference in location where I was for my last year of high school. But I was one belt level away from becoming a black belt and a sensei in that style because I had been taking it from such a young age.
So, have you been enjoying the Mr. Pandaria expansion then, uh, based on that?
Oh, it's been a very fun thing to compare um, because of the architecture for one thing. It's very Oriental, very much a mix between Japanese and Chinese culture. Of course, it's Blizzard's interpretation of what the Pandaren culture would be like,
Sure.
but it has been very interesting, and in many ways, that's almost an inspiration for the whole Shadowpan storyline that my character is in right now.
Well, excellent, sir. Well, well, thank you, and we'll be right back with some final questions. All right. Well, now your character is a Worgen. Now, a lot of people have kind of varying lores that they use uh, on how they became a Worgen. How did Galen? What's his history with his Worganism? I guess you would say.
Well, I guess the best answer to that is to actually read an excerpt from my MRP history. So I'll do that right now.
Okay. Let me open that up here. Like that. All right.
Galen Lattimore was actually with King Gen, as well as a few other royal guards, when Gen embarked on that famous hunting trip when he got turned into a worgen.
Oh, okay.
And mind you, that's actually a couple years before the actual curse came in over the wall from Shadowfang Keep. At this point in time, the Greymane Wall had already been constructed across Lord Crowley's land, and the terrible rebellion within Gilneas had ensued between the north and the south. On this hunting trip, Gen and his guards were deep in the woods, and they actually came across, a huge pack of Worgen that had escaped the walls of Shadowfang Keep, which, as most people know, is directly outside the wall. Gen and Galen and all the other guards fought them off, but not without being bit and, definitely cursed. Of course, back then, they were completely ignorant about a curse from a Worgen. They spent a few weeks in a pack form together because they all got turned together, and so it was almost like they were being born into the beast together, so they all kind of became brothers and stuck together. And slowly, over the course of a couple of weeks, their minds kind of eased out, and they realized that they were, humans and had been turned into beasts. And so by cover of night, they crept back into Gilneas and actually, contacted the royal chemist, Krenan Uranus, who you will actually see in the game as an NPC, in hopes of finding a cure to their form. Galen, as captain of the Royal Guard of Greymane, he voted himself to be the first test subject of the first elixir made. He was a knight at the time, and he was extremely loyal to his kingdom, and he was more than willing to put his life for his men and the king if the elixir failed. The effect of the elixir was very much devastating. It didn't just not work, but it actually enhanced the curse further. Galen went through a painful process of morphing, bones growing, snapping, breaking, and healing again, the organs in his body growing and moving about. By the end of a long night, he had become more than just Worgen. He was a dire Worgen, as so dubbed by the chemist. Galen eventually stood much taller than every other Worgen, far more muscular, faster, stronger, and keen of sense. Without armor in this form, he was weighed at 600 pounds, rounded.
Holy
Specific
smokes.
traits were far different. Shorter snout, longer hair, and much longer curved claws. He discovered his ability to smell the world around him as if it, were as good as his sight. His eyesight was enhanced, even in human form. He could see things from the farthest distance, and of course see in pitch black, because, let's face it, they're wolves. He was testing his newfound strength one day, and he actually managed to punch out a corner of solid concrete from the foundation of a building effortlessly. And because of this, being as well in the Gilnean infantry, he realized, wow, I have all this power that I didn't need before. And so this starts this whole concept in his mind of, if he can learn enough in his human form of fighting style, really learn to defend himself across all these different knowledgeable combat styles, then he will never have to go into this huge working form and use this unnatural power that he was given.
Sure.
You can very much use the statement, "With great power comes great responsibility,"
Right.
which most people will hear from the original, which most people will know from the original Spider-Man movie.
Right.
And so, because of this, Galen, his entire mindset is going into that form is the very last resort of defending his own life or someone he cares about.
Oh, okay. And now you have a special way of transforming, don't you?
I do indeed, yes. Because of his enhanced size, most people know of the elixir of giant growth. And so I have that potion macroed with the Worgen racial spell called Dark Flight, which pretty much, if you're in human form, turns you into human form turns you into Worgen form, basically immediately. And so it really gives this cool effect of truly how much bigger he is in Worgen form than he is in human form.
Sure. Well, do you want to show the folks how that works?
I definitely can. Just let me step back a little bit for you here, so you can see me in your camera, because I get
Alrighty.
quite big.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Galen Lattimore from human form into dire Worgen form.
Holy smokes. Now let me walk Turwinkle up there, and you'll see, folks, how big he is. I come up to his knee. Ah. Yeah, definitely.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Yeah, holy smokes. So yeah, that is pretty big. Nice. Well, excellent RP to go along with that as well. That is really well done.
Thank you very much. It was really a joy to kind of come up with it as I went along.
Sure. How long do you think that took you to come up with that story?
Well, the original concept for Galen himself as a character, as a personality, really came almost immediately upon realizing that Gilneans or Worgen would be a playable race. So that's pretty much when I saw the announcement trailer for Cataclysm. But in terms of the enhanced Worgen form and all that crafted lore, in terms of back when Gilneas was still as a strong kingdom, that came a couple of years ago, when I wanted to kind of spice things up a little bit, make
Sure.
things a little bit more diverse.
Sure. And you've done a great job with that, sir. Really well done. Alrighty, folks, we're going to come back with, again, some final questions for Galen. So, in what ways are you like Galen?
Well, that's a good question. Galen, regardless of the tragic death of his wife, to this day he is still a very hopelessly romantic man. Um, he always dreams of finding somebody again to have in his life, but at the same time, he isn't so desperate as to just get with any woman that walks up to him. He
Sure.
has to really have a bond. He really has to have that real, true feeling of love and connection. And that's been a problem because a lot of the other characters, the other girl characters that my character ends up hanging around, if not shady, then they're the very quick, the very flirtatious type, and that throws him off guard. So he has very many moments that are, as you would say, close but no cigar.
Oh, okay. So I'm sure there's someone out there for him. In what ways are you different from Galen?
Well, in ways that I'm different, if you look at it realistically, I guess it's the term of relative size. Galen is 6'2", which is a lot taller than I am. I am 5'7", and I haven't grown a couple inches in 3 years, so I'm pretty much stuck at this height for my entire life.
Okay. And
But in
you're-
other terms, he's different.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go on.
No, please. I insist.
Oh, well, in other terms, we're different, quite frankly, because he is, of course, much older in characterly. He's in his early 30s, maybe mid 30s, and I am going to be turning 20 soon. So there's that age gap as well. But at the same time, it's rather easy to compensate in an RP that age.
Sure.
Just being someone who's been through a lot of different things in his life, emotional things, thought processes, even changes of views, which my character definitely has had since he's started to train the Shadow Path.
All right. And also, you're not a Worgen in real life, right?
I don't think so. I hope not. That might explain the horrible nightmares I've been having.
Yeah, the rip sheets and whatnot. Yeah, that.
The rip sheets, the annoying facial hair. Oh man, blast! That's what's been going on.
All right, sir. Well, one final question. What advice would you give someone?
Most assuredly.
What advice would you give someone that's just starting to RP or that wants to start to RP? What advice would you give them?
Well, for one, although a lot of people would, very much say, that's a waste of time, quite frankly, I would tell them exactly what I was told when I first started role-playing. And that is, whatever you want to roleplay as, Alliance or Horde, or maybe even a race that isn't even playable in the game, which, in many terms, I think the first one that comes to mind would be the Quel'Dorei, is read up on the lore of that race. So you actually have a concept as to what you're getting yourself into. If you choose a race that, quite frankly, has a really extensive, complicated background when it comes to history, perhaps maybe you want to choose a race that has a more simple background, like gnomes, for instance. Their backgrounds are very simple and very easy to build off of.
Hey, we're very complex people, sir. Very complex.
Oh, I'm not
people.
singling you out, Turwinkle. I love you, Turwinkle. I'm just saying, in terms of complexity, you also have to compare, let's say, gnomes to Draenei. Draenei come from a different planet. Draenei are ageless beings. Draenei have a lot of history to them because they're extremely old, and quite frankly, a lot of the time you don't even know how old they are unless you ask them.
All right, alrighty, sir.
For new role players, just choose your first race to roleplay as wisely, because you will come across the person that will, if not call you out on your history, then question how knowledgeable you are in lore, and you don't want to be caught off guard.
All right, sir. Well, that is wonderful advice. Thank you. And folks, we'll be right back to say our farewells to Galen. All right, folks. Well, we're back, and boy, let me tell you, thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful talk tonight, letting us get to know you better and your tune better as well. It's been a wonderful look into a fantastic RP, and I love the whole Worgen story, and actually I love everything about your tune. The RP is immaculate, and I really look forward to RPing with you more in the future.
And I thank you very much. This has been an amazing experience, really getting to talk about my pride and joy of my imagination. It's really been fun.
Well, I've said it before, and again, I could easily say it here. You could certainly write a novel about Galen in a book, and I'm sure it would sell just as many copies as the stories of King Varian or any of those other stories, because of just what a wonderful background that Galen has, and a wonderful story that he has made, that you have made so far for him. And it's just a wonderful RP, and I just love those kinds of things, because again, it shows all that creativity out there that goes into RP, and what a wonderful job you've done there, sir.
And I thank you very much. Again, this character has been the outlet for all of my imagination over the past year since Cataclysm. So it's been really fun and really refreshing to really just have fun with my own imagination in this game.
Alrighty, well, again, thank you for being patient with Turwinkle and all his pestering questions. And
I'm honored.
And we have really enjoyed the talk. Well, folks, we will be back in just a second, back in the hinterlands, to give our final analysis of the interview. So we will see you there.
Never forget. Never surrender.
And we're back in the hinterlands. Well, Turwinkle, that was an excellent interview with Galen Lattimore, wasn't it?
Affirmative.
Yeah, we really had a good time. So let's give him a nice big thank you.
I am in your debt.
Yes, we really are, because he really was very patient with us tonight, and we had a great time learning everything we could about Galen Lattimore. So folks, if you liked the episode, click that like button. If you would like to comment on this episode or on Galen's RP or anything in our previous episodes, please do so below. We love comments, whether good or bad, and help us to make sure that we are going in the right direction, folks. Finally, if you'd like to join Team Turwinkle, we would love to have you, so hit that subscribe button tonight. Well, Turwinkle, what an excellent job. We had a good time learning everything about Galen, didn't we? So, again, questions right on point. You did an excellent job interviewing, sir. And we will see you next time, Turwinkle.
I'll miss you.
We'll miss you too, Turwinkle. Bye-bye.